Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Bob Willig, Executive Director and CEO, SME.
Good morning. It worked. We got it out of the way, did you notice? So it'll be perfect when you're up here, Mike. So how's that? So good morning, everyone. And once again, I'm Bob Willig, Executive Director and CEO of SME, and I want to welcome you all both to South Tech 2023 and to a day today which is, I think, going to be very exciting with a lot of opportunities to hear from some really smart people on a very key and important subject. So welcome. Thank you for being here. A couple of words about SME while we get started here. SME, if you're not familiar, is a 91-year-old nonprofit dedicated to the advancement of the manufacturing ecosystem, both through talent development and technology adoption, and working on accelerating both of those specific topics. Those who know me know I like to call it the two T's, talent and technology. So hopefully you'll remember that for us as well. All of us here today believe manufacturing is the key to prosperity. I firmly believe through the Industrial Revolution, manufacturing is what built the middle class here in the United States. And it's about darn time we bring it back to where it needs to be. And we need the talent to be there, we need the adoption of technology, and we need to move it at a faster rate. Everything you see here, from commerce and commercial capabilities on the floor to the high school kids that were next door this morning, and you see them around the factory floor, the show floor, is all around that philosophy, that belief that manufacturing drives prosperity in this industry. I talked about SME. Our mission, once again, is to develop that next generation workforce, the talent piece, but also to advance manufacturing forward, and that's the technology piece. So the South Tech event you're here at today, this has been going on for over 30 years here in the Carolinas. We very much are happy to be here and value the location, the interest that it brings. We have people coming all the way from Atlanta to the south, all the way up to Raleigh from the north. So it's a specific regional show focused on that adoption of manufacturing and moving manufacturing forward. We have distributors, suppliers, manufacturers, participants in this ecosystem, and of course all of you here as well. So it's a great opportunity to bring together some interested minds wanting to focus on the future. Speaking of the future, one of the challenges we have around workforce development is attracting people to want to come work in manufacturing. You may have heard that there's a recent Deloitte study that's out, everybody quotes it, says in the next 10 years we'll have a shortage of 2.7 million workers just in the United States in the manufacturing sector. How are we going to advance manufacturing forward, take it to the next level, if we don't have people who want to come work in it? What are we going to do to attract, develop, and retain this talent that want to come and be a part of manufacturing? If you don't want to think 10 years out into the future, think today. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics in August published a report that said there are over 600,000 unfilled manufacturing jobs in the United States right now. If that's not a call to action, if that's not a call to order, I don't know what is for all of us. So we all have a shared responsibility to bring more interest into manufacturing. So it's workforce development. We'll talk about that today in the context of Manufacturing USA, which I'll introduce here in a moment. Those of you who are not familiar with Manufacturing USA, and I'm suspecting you probably all are, it's a network of public-private partnerships united to secure U.S. global leadership in advanced manufacturing, really through large-scale collaboration on technology, supply chain, and workforce development. You can see the natural interest and connection between SME, our mission, vision, and values, and what manufacturing brings to the party. There are 17 Manufacturing USA institutes. They convene business collaborators, partners, academic institutions, government institutions, and key stakeholders, really to test that next level of technology. The fact that you're here today tells me you probably know quite a bit about this already, but I must say that SME values our relationship with Manufacturing USA and at least 7 or 8 of the key institutes today, and looking for opportunities to collaborate and grow more with them. So we're thrilled to bring you all here together today to be both a part of South Tech and this special day today dedicated to Manufacturing USA. Before we get started, very quickly, we have to pay the bills, which is I'd like to talk to you about who sponsored today. The Smart Manufacturing Theater is sponsored by UPG. UPG combines the collective purchasing power of member companies to negotiate volume discounts on the products and services needed to run your business. A UPG representative unfortunately couldn't be here today, but we do have a quick video that we'd like to show just to let you know a little bit more about UPG.
Manufacturing is all about efficiently converting raw materials into finished products. UPG understands. That's why we've partnered with premier vendors to bring exclusive discounts to manufacturers that really deliver the goods. UPG's unique program runs like a well-oiled machine and puts purchasing power in your hands. To get rolling with UPG, so you can begin to take advantage of exclusive savings and deep discounts on the products and services your business uses every day, it helps to understand that in business, the advantage usually tilts toward the big guys. With size comes volume and purchasing power. That's where UPG comes in. By combining our 45,000 member companies into one group, we even the playing field, giving small and mid-sized businesses the big company purchasing power necessary to negotiate massive discounts. But your membership with UPG will save you more than money. You'll save time. No more shopping around, calling multiple vendors to find the lowest prices. We do it all for you. And UPG has a full slate of name brand vendor partners for electronics, office supplies, HR services, facilities and uniforms, LTL shipping, car rentals, and even a way to reward your employees for a job well done. You call the shots and pick the vendors you want to use. Speaking of calls, UPG has an exclusive agreement with Verizon for 22% off company wireless phone and data service and up to 18% off for employees. Becoming a member of UPG is simple. There are no gimmicks, no tricks, no unrelenting spam. Just our promise to find you the biggest discounts with our big name vendors. Best of all, your membership won't cost you a dime. Yes, as incredible as it sounds, membership with UPG is absolutely free. The clearest sign yet for why you should go to upg.org to set up your free membership and start saving today.
Okay, now it's time to get the day started. Thank you for UPG. Thank you to UPG, obviously, for support. It's now my pleasure, my honor, to introduce to the stage Mike Molnar, Director of the National Institute of Standards and Technology Office for Advanced Manufacturing, and my friend, who will share with us share today and MC today's discussions, share some interesting thoughts and comments, and bring us to the day. So thank you, and please welcome Mike Molnar to the stage.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob. Actually, it's great to be here. 30 years of South Tech, and I have to say, Bob already did a better job than I could talking about Manufacturing USA. This morning is all about what it really means to find value in getting involved with Manufacturing USA. You see, right over there, there's a booth called SESME. There's Lyft on, there is Symani on cybersecurity. There's MXD on digital, and they're not here to sell you something. What they're here to do is to show the value of a public-private partnership. So Bob is a friend because I've been an active member and leader of SME for over 40 years. The more I would get involved, the more I would learn as an engineer and a leader, and that's the metaphor that I want to share with you today is SESME is not trying to sell you a product or a service. SESME is all about connecting industry and academia together to solve industry's relevant problems. So this session is about Manufacturing USA. What does it really mean? Why is this a big deal? And it really is all about developing game-changing technologies. Now, there's so much happening that's cool in our national labs, in our universities. We are the envy of the planet in that. I come from industry. Most of my career was in developing advanced manufacturing and technologies. I would design machines and lines, and I would be building plants here in the United States and in other countries. And when you launch a plant, if you continuously improve a plant, if you increase the yield, everyone knows, if you increase it by 1%, you are a hero, you've saved millions of dollars, you are more competitive. that's not why you joined SESME. Why you joined SESME is the really transformational things. Not the 1%, not the 10%, the 50%, the really step changes. And that's what Manufacturing USA is about, is these game-changing technologies. You would be crazy to visit a national lab, see something work once, and then scale it up for your plant, because you're betting your business on something that the technology may not be really proven. So what Manufacturing USA is about is some of the best work I did in industry was working with a national lab or a university or another company with a shared purpose. That was great. How do you do it on a selected project with 10 of the best universities in the nation with specialists in that technology and 15 other companies that have that shared value? That's what we talk about when Bob said large-scale collaboration. It really is about taking your R&D team, multiplying it by a couple hundred, because you're sharing the risk. And Bob already covered this slide. It is connecting people, ideas, and technology to solve industry-relevant problems. It's all about our economic competitiveness and our national security. That's why the federal government is involved with a public-private partnership. Today, we have 9 agencies. 3 agencies are sponsoring institutes, but the National Science Foundation, NSF, for example, just put out a few days ago a Dear Colleague letter about how are they supporting new projects that feed into Manufacturing USA. So we have a terrific federal team. DOE sponsors 7 institutes, DOD sponsors 9 institutes, Commerce is sponsoring 1. We have competitions for additional institutes, and we also serve as the program office supporting Manufacturing USA. Bob already mentioned, boy, he did a terrific job. They're 17 and growing. And here's where they are. They are all with a charter technology area. It's all about a game-changing technology. And it's not only the technologies, but Bob nicely mentioned, we have a critical workforce skill shortage. And so for these emerging technologies, you join America Makes. There's one thing, additive is great, and you can go to the SME Rapid Show and learn about it and buy a machine, and that was really helpful. But your competitors can do the same thing. If you wanted to take that additive process and really optimize it and do something special that your competitors don't, that's where you might join America Makes on additive manufacturing. So America Makes, it was our pilot institute over 10 years ago. It's now expanded into these 17 institutes. And the latest one is on EPICS, which is industrial process decarbonization. Because the manufacturing sector is so energy intensive, we have huge opportunities to solve these things. But this is 17 and growing. Well, it's nice to wave your hands and talk about a big picture. And this slide collectively says, at a snapshot, this is about a $400+ million annual budget program where the government is actually putting in much less. The government plays a role that even direct competitors can collaborate on this without breaking any antitrust rules or such, that the government is playing the role of helping the institutes establish that neutral convening ground to really have these projects, right? They also put in monies, and there is a 1-to-1 match. Well, there's actually over a 2-to-1 match because industry is finding such value to be a part of Manufacturing USA. So at a snapshot last year, 2,500 organizations. What's an organization? An organization is, there's Jim Davis from UCLA. UCLA is a proud member of SESME. That's one. So Lockheed Martin, great aerospace company, that's another. That's what we mean about members. So you don't join the Manufacturing USA program, you join an institute because it's going to help you solve something. It's going to help you do a game changer. It's going to help you do something that makes you globally competitive. What do they do? Well, we're now over 700 active, we're talking major research projects that really no single university or company can do by themselves, but collectively through the power of mass collaboration, you can do these things. Over 700 right now this year of these projects, and all of them have a specific objective to do something very, very tangible. And did I mention it's 1%, 2% really important? the 50 and the 90%, the game changers. That's what we're working on here. The other thing that was amazing is as we come out of the global pandemic, we engaged over 100,000 people in education and workforce development, because that's the other side. You can get the technology, but if you don't have workers that really understand it and can use it and can and ensure that it is embedded into your processes, embedded into your systems, then you're not going to get there. And that's why the other part of Manufacturing USA is education and workforce. I mentioned commerce. We are in the process. We have 4 competitions going on right now. We will be launching a new institute on a topic that industry proposes. We're going to have this open to any topic. We are encouraging, give us proposals on national priorities. You may have also heard of the CHIPS and Science Act. We will be launching institutes, Manufacturing USA institutes, about semiconductors. And this is really, really a special time in the United States. Between the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the CHIPS and Science Act, an unprecedented amount of federal dollars are going into investments here in U.S. manufacturing. But the really exciting thing isn't the federal investments. We're all taxpayers, right? That's important. The amazing thing of what these things are doing, these bipartisan bills, is that the private sector is investing in the United States like never before. Since the start of those bills, we have 500, there's a website, whitehouse.gov/invest. There's a website that is conservatively tracking over $520 billion of private sector investments because of these co-investments. And that's why this is a tremendously exciting time for U.S. manufacturers. The Manufacturing USA Network, also supported by the Manufacturing Extension Partnership Network. If you're not aware of MEP, the South Carolina MEP booth is right over there. It is our network to support small and medium-sized enterprises. And what I really want to do, I talked about the big picture. That's okay. The really exciting thing to understand what Manufacturing USA is about is to get really specific. So we have 2 amazing panels for you this morning. One of them is with industry leaders. I'm sorry, we're going to close with the industry leaders because I'm very excited about that voice. The first panel is about institute leaders. The executive director from CESME, from Simani, and from MXD. You're going to hear from them on what they're doing to really do these game-changing technologies. And that will be followed by an industry panel, industry leaders that are involved with Manufacturing USA, not because it's an altruistic thing, not because it's a patriotic thing. They're doing it because it is the best way for them to develop these technologies and get them in because they want to be and remain globally competitive. So let's shift now to the first panel, and this will be moderated by my friend and colleague, Dr. Kelly Rogers. Kelly is a bio expert. She joined our team to establish the NIST Nimble Institute. This is on biopharmaceutical manufacturing. And Dr. Rogers will be introducing the 3 institute directors. So Kelly, come on up and let's learn about Manufacturing USA.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to first welcome our panelists to the stage. So come on up, John, Howard, and Tony. And thanks, Mike, for the introduction. All right. So while we're all taking our seats here, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our panelists today. Need some glasses for that. So John, right? So John Dyke was appointed CEO of the Clean Energy Smart Manufacturing Innovation Institute, or CESME, as we know it, in June of 2018. So John's known as globally as an expert who's integrating IT and operations for both technology and business management practices. At CESME, John has focused on how innovation like cloud and the industrial Internet of Things impact manufacturing, and has pioneered the application of these technologies in a wide range of manufacturing operations across many industries. So welcome, John.
Thank you.
All right. And our second panelist, Howard Grimes. Howard has served as the Chief Executive Officer at CyMani, which is the Cybersecurity Manufacturing Innovation Institute, since 2019. Howard is an accomplished research scientist and author with 25 years of experience directing complex university and national laboratory research programs, as well as entrepreneurial startup initiatives. So Howard's leading CyMani in developing new cybersecurity technologies and methods and sharing that information and knowledge with the broader US manufacturing community. Thank you, Howard, for joining us. So, and then Tony Papke, our third panelist, has served as the Director of Business Development for MXD, which is Manufacturing Times Digital Institute, since 2019. In that capacity, Tony develops and drives partner engagement through business development initiatives, aligning prospective partners with the goals and strategies of the Institute. Tony brings more than 15 years of experience in the medical device industry, developing strategic relationships to his work with MXD. So thank you, panel, for joining us. And I'd like to start us off by giving you each a couple of minutes to just tell us about your Manufacturing USA Institute and what excites you about the mission of that institute and your role in it. So I think we can start with John.
All right, well, good morning all. It's a privilege to be here today and share with you a little bit about the incredible opportunity we have here in the US, really as a relatively recent thing in our nation's history to bring government, industry, and academia together. I mentioned briefly yesterday here on the stage that this is not something the US has a lot of muscle memory or DNA and historic capabilities doing. Other nations, mature manufacturing regions like Germany and much of Europe, they have that long-standing traditional mechanism for industry and government and academia to work together. And it's a privilege to work with Manufacturing USA to help facilitate bringing that about. Americans are much more individualistic as people, and our corporations reflect that same mentality. But in a global manufacturing setting, and it's more global now than ever before, bringing this community together is more important than ever, right? We have to solve big, big problems, and we can't do that as individual organizations. Never mind the fact that our supply chains are global and we can't deal with a global community if we're isolated here in terms of our practices, our standards, US-only ways of doing things. And so from a smart manufacturing perspective, it's my privilege to lead the convening of the best thinkers in this community, the manufacturers, the technology providers, the integrators, the consultants, the machine builders, academia, to advance the state of manufacturing. We talk about our vision as an institute is to accelerate the democratization of smart manufacturing. How can we reduce the cost and complexity to accelerate our ability to innovate and become more competitive, number one. But 1.1 is how can we bring this entire community, and specifically the small, medium manufacturing community, into this smart manufacturing journey. They're not there today as a principle. This entire ecosystem is focused on the large enterprises, and the inherent cost and complexity that's been part of that has inhibited small, medium manufacturers from engaging. And so we're here to facilitate bringing this community together, all of this community together, to reduce cost and complexity, to facilitate the R&D, the innovation at the speed of manufacturing to accomplish these really important things for our nation's manufacturing competitiveness.
Thank you, John, for that overview of SESME and why it matters, right? So, Howard, would you like to tell us about CyMani?
So the Cybersecurity Manufacturing Innovation Institute, our tagline says it all, and that tagline is secure together. And by that, what we epitomize is the fact that cybersecurity is absolutely a team sport. No one organization, no one type of organization has the wherewithal to solve what in the cyber land, if you will, are called wicked grand challenges. just last week, the Federal Bureau of Investigation released a report on sort of national status of cyber issues in the United States. The subtitle of that report is Vulnerable by Design. And that's an appropriate subtitle because none of the systems that manufacturers or any other organization run today were ever designed to be secure by design. And one of the challenges that the Department of Energy, who in our case is our funder, you know, when they announced the opportunity for this institute, that the funding opportunity announcement was extraordinarily forward-thinking, and it recognized the fact that no existing technologies that exist or are emerging today have the capability to make us a secure operation or a secure nation. So they challenged the responders to that funding opportunity announcement to really think outside of the box, to really think about what are the true innovations needed to not only secure manufacturing, but to secure our nation. And as we have launched our institute, our mantra, our tagline is that secure together, you know, because that is the path forward. I think later we'll get a chance to talk about some of the details of that. But again, you know, it is a team sport. We are a team, and we are securing together.
Perfect. Thank you, Howard. Tony, tell us about MXD.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And thanks for having us here. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to get up here and really start talking about all the great things that we're doing. And John and Howard did a great job already to discuss the need. There are so many challenges out there, and as the Digital Manufacturing and Cybersecurity Institute based in Chicago, MXD, which stands for Manufacturing Times Digital, our goal is really to do a lot of what we're talking about here with convening folks, thinking about the workforce and the challenges of tomorrow, thinking about the needs of tomorrow, thinking about how we impact manufacturers and bring more manufacturing competitiveness to the United States. And these are all challenges that we're all facing. The supply chain, you know, COVID has brought so many new challenges to the surface that I think has helped multiply and exponentially impact the day-to-day operations that we are facing. And so working together, collaborating together is a must, and it's something that we all need to do. And the three of us up here together, I think, is a great example of how we're already collaborating you know, between our organizations.
Thanks so much. And I know each of you have touched on this. Mike mentioned this a lot. When we talk about Manufacturing USA, we talk about partnerships, right? You're partnering with the federal government, you're partnering with industry, you're partnering industry of all sizes, you know, the big manufacturers and all the small to medium manufacturers that really drive so much of our manufacturing capacity in the United States. You're also working with federal labs. You know, the list goes on. I'm sure there's some nonprofits, some workforce development providers in your partnerships. So can you talk a little bit about what the value is to each type of partner that you have, and you know what the return on their investment in participating in the Institute looks like? So I don't know who wants to take that question first, but
Yeah, I can go first, that's fine. I think it really depends on the organization that's joining, but there's something for everyone. And so, you know, whether you're taking a very active role in participation, you know, you might help with the strategic direction of where the Institute's going, the technologies necessarily that we might be wanting to look at. I mean, we don't want to use technology as like our silver, you know, our shining star and our North Star, but at the same point in time, it really helps to solve the problems that we're trying to solve collectively as a group. So everybody brings a different kind of experience, background, point of view, and then collectively together, obviously we can then use that information to then move forward the efforts of the Institute. So the nonprofits are extremely important because they're driving different challenges. We have the manufacturing extension partnerships of all the states that we're engaged with. They're active with the manufacturing community in a different way than we are. There's NIST and what they're doing at the Manufacturing USA level and collaboratively. You know, so there's different aspects. Obviously, the manufacturers are extremely important with their entire supply chain, and then the solution providers and academics are a big part of it too. So it takes everyone, and there's value in everyone being part of it. So it's just active enrollment, active engagement, attending the events, convening, being present, having a voice, and then also I think just sharing that voice so that we can all learn together.
Perfect. Thank you. John, Howard, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so there are many, many stakeholders in manufacturing, right? And so to your point, it's really important to understand at a macro level and at a detailed level what the challenges are by stakeholder group, by role, and what their business models look like, how they innovate, how they do research, what's in it for them, and how all of that can become relevant to manufacturing. At the end of the day, there's a sense of urgency we have here post global pandemic as well. There's a real sense of urgency around how to take the innovations and the great work that we're funding collectively and bring those to the market in a more effective way. Because I think that's there's a name for that, the great chasm of death or something like that between research and applicable relevance and pragmatic value creation of those innovations in industry. And so understanding those stakeholder needs very specifically and ensuring that the Institute is aligned to address those needs. Small, medium manufacturers, of course, there's on the continuum of mature to need a lot of help. What they all need is a center of gravity, a kind of a voice of truth, a voice of credibility that's not a vendor voice. Nothing against vendors, but small and medium manufacturers need to build the capabilities to understand the value and understand how they can engage, and of the hundreds of different ways they could invest their limited capital, what is the most important for them. And so how do you build the assessment tools to help come alongside them and give them the capabilities to understand clearly their as-is state, and then build a roadmap, a compelling, achievable roadmap to get them to the to-be state, right? That's one example of a really important stakeholder group. And then for the large manufacturing community and the vendors, the technology providers that support them, we have a legacy of proprietary capabilities, proprietary systems, and the entire ecosystem is shifting, needs to shift, and is shifting to open and interoperable. And how can we facilitate that? So those are important cultural things, those are important community things, those are important capability things. We have to be mindful of those and shepherd the community forward in effective, relevant ways.
Thanks. All right, Howard?
So I think to answer that question, it's appropriate at some level to break it down into what types of organizations you're dealing with. So from our perspective, we live and breathe our tagline, secure together. So what we mean by that is that we aggregate across the best cybersecurity universities in the country, all of the best thinking in the country that's available. We aggregate that talent, but more than that, every one of those universities is under subcontract with us. So we have a bi-directional flow of resources that we can enable very, very quickly. If you look at the national labs, there are 17 national labs, Department of Energy national labs I'm talking about, and those represent extraordinary capabilities and expertise. So our institute has 4 of them, again, under subcontract, if you will. So we can mobilize a workforce almost overnight. As soon as we get a new challenge, we can adapt and we can go. With industry, and I want to sort of pause on industry for a minute, because when you think about cybersecurity, one of the challenges is that our adversaries are extremely well funded and extremely smart. And they are constantly evolving what we call the cyber threat landscape. And our response to that is that we have to aggregate the talent to really address that, but we also have to do it in a very agile manner. So we have revolutionized, or we have pioneered, I guess is a better word, the use of agile development strategies to aggregate across that geographical and institutional norm so that we can very quickly assess threats and respond to how those architectures or how those implants need to be, mitigated, at scale often. And so with the industry, you know, if you know anything about Agile, you know that it's done within this Agile Scrum development structure. And we practice that every single day of our operation. And as we develop those Agile Scrum teams, you know, each one of those teams has what's called a product owner. And the product owner in our teams is an industry member. So we bring Lockheed Martin to the table, we bring General Electric, Cisco, et cetera, et cetera. And those industry representatives make sure that the innovations that we're developing hit a target that's extraordinarily relevant to them in real time.
That's great. And I think that there's no better way of understanding how the institutes work than to ask each of you to brag a little. I want to hear a success story that has come out of your institute that sort of demonstrates how the institute operates to bring that value, not just to your partners, but to the ecosystem more broadly. So who's ready to start?
I'd be happy to. So in the vein of helping small medium manufacturers, because I don't mean to belabor the point, but we work with a lot of the great manufacturers, the great technology providers, and that part of the community I think is well served. The small medium manufacturers are not, and so one of the real challenges in general is how to cost effectively connect equipment, legacy equipment, to the point where you can actually extract valuable data that can help transform that business and help them become more effective as a small medium manufacturer. And so just a couple of really simple things that we've been able to do. We found a highly innovative small company that was really, really uniquely good at connecting legacy machine tools to a network. And so we funded a project to create a low-cost edge device to connect machine tools, CNCs, and other legacy devices to a network in an open and standards-based way, so that those legacy machines, without a lot of complexity or cost, can actually emit data and allow you to make better business decisions. And in that same vein, one of our other great partners, ThinkIQ, has included, with our support and our funding, the ability to point a low-cost $40 camera at a work cell, at a human being, at a process, and digitize that process without any sophisticated skill sets, and turn whether or not that machine is running or not, whether or not that stack light is red, yellow, or green, whether or not there's an operator at the cell, turn all of that into real-time data with a super low-cost camera, and again, empower decision-making without the complexity of a network, which in some cases is complex and costly, and without needing or requiring significant infrastructure to do so. So important ways from a networking standpoint, from a connectivity perspective, from using modern technology like low-cost Raspberry Pi video cameras, and enabling that sort of connectivity to happen.
Sounds impressive. Thank you.
Sure. Similarly, MXD has also taken an approach with small to medium-sized manufacturers too. I think one of the challenges that we can see quite often is that there's not enough time and effort in a day within a small manufacturer, right? They're worried about today, they're not necessarily worried about tomorrow, the job, the tasks, the resources, the capabilities. And so giving them that data, I think, is an extremely important thing to do, and we've actually taken an initiative internally to visit some of these sites locally in the Chicagoland area, see what their challenges are in person, and work with them to help them connect that data. Because once they have that, it enables them to do things that they couldn't do before, and enables them to have extra information that can then help make their business better, more efficient. And those are really the things that help them at the end of the day. And so I think just making an impact at a small scale right now, and then hopefully greater in the future, is what we really are about, because there are so many manufacturers in the United States. I'm sure you've heard the stats before, but with 240,000 manufacturers in the US and 98% of them being small, it is a huge focus, and it should be a focus of all of ours on how do we help enable and how do we make the data available to them that is readily available to larger manufacturers. Another project that I think is exciting too is that we've worked with, obviously the government and the DoD is our sponsor. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been working with one of the arsenals. And so within the organic industrial base, which would be like the Army, the Navy, the shipyards, the Air Force, the depots, there's a lot of manufacturing that actually goes on there. And obviously with the concerns overseas and what's happening right now, there's a lot of need in these areas to help modernize these facilities. And so MXD has taken an active role in this by going to these facilities, doing assessments, understanding where there's opportunities to help improve, to make more efficient. And we've done a lot of efforts in these spaces right now, and I'm excited to see if we can keep doing that in the future.
So both of my colleagues have mentioned small and medium-sized manufacturers, and if you look at the threat landscape that is upon them, so to speak, that threat landscape is huge. And I will tell you point blank that when we talk to those manufacturers about that threat landscape and the number of vulnerabilities, which usually exceeds 20, 25,000 easily, their eyes more or less roll back in their head, and they're presented with a problem that they don't think is solvable because of the volume of that problem. And so we've retrenched our entire approach to vulnerability detection and mitigation and replaced it with a revolutionary approach that we call cyber weakness enumeration. So currently in today's world, there are a known value of almost 250,000 vulnerabilities. And what we've done is we've broken those vulnerabilities down into under 900 categories, and then we've developed an attack annex structure that allows us to go into an individual company and prioritize which weaknesses they need to address most for the most cyber hardness return. And an example of this is we've gone into a small/medium, they're right on the cusp of that, company, an additive manufacturing company in the Midwest, and they were attacked, and ransomware came in the first time. They did everything that they were told to do. They incorporated existing technologies. They bolstered their systems. They thought they were fine until they were attacked again, and they were not fine at all. So that's when they reached out to us, because they're like, well, we've done everything we know how to do. What are we missing? We went in, we did a cyber weakness enumeration analysis. We found exactly where their weaknesses are. We applied our annex, our attack annex to them, and we're now working with them, to actively mitigate those vulnerabilities. And so that's one example that, that we have.
It's a great example. And so now that we've talked about successes, right? I know from my work with Nimble, there are challenges, right? That the diversity of your stakeholders, just as Howard mentioned, sometimes the scope of the problem, getting a group of companies that are used to working as competitors to see the value in working together, and hearing often when you present the challenge you're trying to solve, that'll never work because we'll never agree, right? So I'm thinking of sharing data, bioprocess data, for biopharmaceutical manufacturing. We're never going to share our data. Well, we can't share our data. We call it different things. The metadata is different. Our proprietary practices will prevent it. Let's start breaking that down as an institute and solving each of those individually. But it's hard. And I don't think any of us want to minimize, that challenge that it is, but you're all succeeding in doing that. So I want to ask you, what do you think are the hardest challenges that you face in operating these complex consortiums and consortia, and sort of what have you learned about how to navigate those challenges? So who wants to take a stab at that?
I can go first. I think the biggest challenge that we face, and now So MXD, we're about 10 years old. We'll be coming up on our 10-year here, beginning part of next year. And through those 10 years, we've had a lot of different opportunities to work with our partners and competitive situations and all kinds of challenges. I think in the early phases, we were really focused on solving more R&D focused problems, valley of death problems, proof of concept, proof of value. And I think that was an extremely important thing for us to start at because we needed to have a baseline. And then as we've kind of transitioned now in our journey, we've really seen that the biggest impact that we can possibly have is scale. So thinking of challenges that not only impact obviously different markets, different verticals, but how can it then scale within the supply chain? How can it scale within an industry? And so those problems are different because it's a different set of stakeholders, it's a different set of problems, it's different set of challenges between the large, the small, and all the solution providers, and basically the folks that make up our entire ecosystem. You need to put them all together to solve those problems. And so from our standpoint, and I think probably similarly for the others, trying to get to that scale is an incredibly important part because that's where we bring the most value. So if we can find solutions that impact many, that are broad enough and valuable enough to implement within the factories, but then can also scale up and down, we're finally getting into something that I think matters. And supply chain, cybersecurity, those are all areas that I think have that opportunity. So that's where we've been focusing more of our efforts and where I think we feel the most opportunity is.
Perfect. Right, thank you. All right, John, Howard, what can you add? Right.
Sure. So I alluded to this before briefly. The reality is, for us to have a national impact and really a global impact, we need to bring the smartest minds and the most capable people, organizations, and perspectives of a wide-ranging and diverse set of perspectives to the table to help us make sure that we understand and prioritize correctly the challenges that we are here to address, to fund, to take these funding opportunities and solve major problems. Well, as I alluded to before, American companies aren't actually used to collaborating in this way, and this is an important part of what we've been collectively challenged and chartered to do. How can we convene the right proportion, the right set of stakeholders to accomplish this? And so it's been important for us to become more visible. So if you go to Germany, in fact, if you go to this audience here today, you ask, how many people have heard about Industry 4.0? Probably 100% of us have heard of Industry 4.0. How many folks know that there are Manufacturing USA institutes focused on this? Probably 5 out of 100, right? So that's a huge challenge for us. And when we find those organizations that are not just aware of who we are, but then have a voice and have the corporate support to step in and say, yeah, I have a perspective, I'm representing this corporation, this stakeholder group, and I am happy to share that. I'm willing to share, I want to learn, but I'm also willing to share and invest and give back. Those are capabilities that I think as Manufacturing USA institutes, we have to double down on and make a way. I'd love to inspire the corporate CEOs of America, from the largest to the smallest, to make this part of our national DNA, to give back, to collaborate. We need the methods, we need the corporate support, we need the mindset to do that, because the problems we need to solve are not company problems, are not even stakeholder group problems. They are national and global problems. And so this is something that, a problem that we have to overcome. It's applicable to all of us as institutes, it's applicable to the nation, and that's why we love being, and we go way out of our way to be as visible in the marketplace as possible, to try to inspire, draw relevance to what, and visibility to what we're doing, but try to inspire folks to engage, folks that have a voice to engage.
Thank you. Howard.
Yeah, I think to foot stomp that a little bit, maybe a lot, is that, I think one of the greatest aspects of Manufacturing USA and all of the institutes is that our charge is to lead lead the way. One of the most challenging and difficult aspects of being a Manufacturing USA Institute is that our charge is to lead the way. In other words, our charge is to be in front of the technology. Our charge is to be developing that technology in order to move our nation forward in terms of competitiveness and security. And so to me, that is a major issue. You know, when we talk, you know, we have a slide, you know, a slide presentation that we use a lot. And in that slide presentation, you know, there's a phrase that's used in cybersecurity a lot. It's called secure architectures and secure by design. And so we have one slide that says, here's what everybody means today when they say these words. And we itemize what those mean. And then we say, here's what we mean when we say it. Because we're looking way past the headlights. We're looking, you know, as I say often in a national security or intelligence community terminology, we're looking around the corner. We're looking at the threats that are coming our way in the upcoming years, not the ones necessarily that just exist today. And so I think that that's a huge challenge, you know, on any organization that is, and we're designed to be that for the nation. It's fantastic. It's absolutely necessary, but it presents its own set of challenges. You know, when I go to, and I don't want to say particular companies, but a lot of the times we go to big OEMs and they nod their head and basically they're like, we're already on the cutting edge. And we're like, well, let me help you understand where that cutting edge is going to be 2 years from now. And that's the discussion that we constantly find ourselves in.
Yeah, those are great points. And one of the things I noticed, right, first the Institute has to build critical mass, right? So you have to have enough partners to represent what the needs of the ecosystem are, right? And then you get the critical mass in, and then you have to lead them to consensus for them to understand where you're going, right? And it's, you know, you're supposed to lead the way, but it's to help them, right? So their voice is so important in figuring out what the priorities are of your institute. I know in watching that evolve with Nimble that it took some time for those partners to come in, right? Very kind of, I'm not sure where I am and where we're going yet, get oriented into what was possible, and then start pushing forward together. I think with Nimble, I would say, you know, that Nimble was doing things, it was succeeding, but it probably took 2.5 to 3 years for them to understand what could be accomplished by truly working together in that space on their priorities. So I'm going to ask you, each of you, you know, very similar spaces, but different cultures, you know, within your partnerships. How long did it take, right? I know, Howard, Simani's pretty new, but do you feel that your stakeholders get it now? I'm guessing that the answer is yes, because you're all thriving, right? But what did it take to get them to understand that space?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think the answer is it took years, and I want to say we're there now, but probably not as effective as we ought to be or need to be. There are some inherent complexities that come along with spending U.S. taxpayer funds. As an organization, we had to learn what that looks like. We have, SESME's hosted at UCLA, so we have a phenomenal environment at UCLA where Jim Davis, the PI that is responsible for SESME there, does a great job sort of facilitating our existence within that another large complex organization. All of that took years for us to figure out how to actually navigate those complexities and be able to accomplish the mission of the Institute, and more importantly, the mission of manufacturing here in this country. And so I'm happy to say that of the staff that's here at SESME, I think we've all been here now for most of those years. There has been very little churn, very little turnover. We have a phenomenal culture. I work with an awesome team. and we have enough history, enough understanding in this very new space of private-public partnerships in the U.S. to kind of now, in a much more effective way, work to bring all of this together in ways that the community, the manufacturers, and the community can actually benefit from, versus navigating the sort of back office complexities that are inherent in the ways that we're structured and the ways that we work. So I think it's a great question. It's a great recognition of the fact that this is all stuff that we have to build as kind of a back office capability before we can be effective in the marketplace.
And it's a challenge. It takes time, as John alluded to. Since we're approaching our 10th year, and we've kind of gone through a couple different journeys, as I talked about earlier. I think the biggest lesson for us is that, partners and the folks that you're working with will come and go. It's just the nature of the beast, right? There's different things that happen. There's dynamics within the environment that, new members will come and some other members will have to step out, but hopefully then they'll come back again. So it's understanding, the needs of your partners, understanding the needs of what problems you're really trying to solve, and making sure that you have the right partners there to help do that mission. And it's okay if it does change. So that's one thing I think that we've recognized over the years too. But the infrastructure was extremely important, because in the beginning we only had 1 or 2 different ways that we could work with our partners, and now we have over 20 different contract vehicles, but that took time. It took infrastructure, it took different opportunities for us to realize ways that we can engage not only collectively within our ecosystem, but then also with the government, because there is a lot of opportunities. Mike mentioned it earlier. There's never been probably more opportunities right now within the government to do business with the industry, with academics, with the manufacturing USA institutes. So I think the timing is really ripe right now for others to get engaged and to really get involved in the mission that we're doing through our collective efforts.
Thank you. Howard, anything to add?
Well, very quickly, because I know we're running out of time, and I think you might have a couple more questions. If you look to my left, your right, that MXD has been around for close to a decade. I think SESME's been around close to 6 years now. We're in our third year of operation. So we're relatively young. We've experienced all the pain points that others have talked about. But an advantage of being the younger person on the block is I was able to pick up the phone in the early days and talk to John and talk to some of the other CEOs and say, tell me what I need to think about, tell me where the potholes are. And so I entered into it with a little bit more, eyes open, if you will, and that was helpful. There's another institute, as Mike mentioned earlier, being stood up now. I've been on the phone with them quite a bit, helping them understand the nature of those potholes and how to navigate those. So my guess is they'll navigate those even better than I did.
Thanks, and I know we are almost at time, but I want to give you each just a second. Where are you going, right? What's ahead that you're excited about next? Can you give us a preview?
Very briefly, one of the things I'm most proud of is as we just announced the next set of renewal funding for the next 5 years at SESME, which I'm truly appreciative of. Most of the membership that's here at SESME today isn't here because we provide grants to fund projects. Most of the members that are at the Institute now are here because we're relevant and we're creating value as an institute for the marketplace. We're funding the innovation, we're funding the research, and that has enabled us to be relevant. And so, from my perspective, I'm excited about the future and the fact that with the experience we have, we can actually be relevant and drive engagement at scale, not just for the handful of organizations that are there, that receive funding for the research. We can bring that at scale to the marketplace.
Perfect. Great. Yeah.
So I look at 5 years and I think of where we're going to be. We have some pretty lofty goals internally of impacting over 10,000 manufacturers directly, having over 1 million impacted to upskilling or reskilling on the workforce development side, and then continuing our modernization efforts within the organic industrial base and the defense industrial base. I think those three principles are really what we're focused on over the next 5 years, and it's going to take collective efforts from a lot of different individuals for us to get there, but it's an exciting goal and one we're hoping to achieve.
All right, Howard, last word.
I think the way future for us is a multitude of different directions, but we need to continue to expand our ability to secure together. We need to add additional strategic partners to complete that mission. And an important part of that is that we just learned on Friday of last week that we were selected by the Department of Commerce to stand up a technology hub in our with Simani. So this enables us to continue to expand that network into more relevant, not more relevant, but more advanced technology readiness levels, and we're extremely excited about that opportunity.
All right. Thank you all. We're excited for your futures as well, and want to make sure that we're good partners to you as you go forward. So that concludes this panel. I'd like to thank our panelists, Howard, Tony, and John, for your time, and invite Mike up to help transition to the next panel where industry is going to share their perspectives on Manufacturing USA. So thank you all again.